You are listening to Life's a Vacay podcast, a weekly podcast series focusing on living a life without limitations. I'm your host, Cha Jones. Each week, I interview purposeful people about what they do and how they do it. Some have traditional professions, while others have designed unconventional careers. But what matters most is that they all are living a life where business and pleasure never separate. Each day is a vacay. So let's get started. Welcome to another episode of Life's a Vacay podcast, a weekly podcast series that focuses on living a life without limitations. I'm your host, Cha Jones. Today, I'll be talking about creating a vision, living outside of your boundaries with my very special guest, Miss LaTasha Simms. LaTasha Simms is the CEO and founder of 3 LLC Consulting Services. After graduating from Central State University in 2008, LaTasha moved to South Korea to educate on behalf of the Seoul Metropolitan Office of Education. While living in South Korea, she earned a master's degree from Yonsei University, GSIS, and lectured at various higher education institutions. She went on to become a fellow for the Department of State. In December of 2019, Simms resided in China, coordinating writing support for over 1,200 undergraduate ESL students. The global pandemic brought to light the need for truly equitable online learning. 3 LLC Consulting Services is the product of LaTasha's commitment to serving her community. LaTasha is currently living in Ghana. So let's talk to her. Let's get started. Let's get started. Hello, LaTasha. How are you doing?
Hey, Cha. I'm well. Thank you very much for having me.
I wanted to have you because I think you're doing some amazing things, but more importantly, we met way back at the beginning of your journey when you first moved abroad. We met in South Korea, and we were both pioneers in this whole Black travel and living abroad movement. And for me, I always try to go back to the people who had some type of impact on my life, and you were one of them. I always remember you and our times that we shared, maybe at brunch, just talking. And actually, my first venture out when I literally was in South Korea for like a week. I met with you and I think it's like 4 or 5 other people, and we went to a concert. So you were probably my welcome committee. And so I thank you for that. But I want to know, and I'm sure my listeners would like to know, since you started in South Korea, what even made you decide to move to South Korea in 2008?
Well, I graduated from the Central State University, and Cleveland never really fit for me, if I'm honest about it. It's my hometown. I love it. It's where I come from. I always go back. I visit all the time. But as a person, Cleveland never really fit for me. There was not enough open-mindedness. There was not enough exploration. There was a cookie cutter, one size fits all, end all, be all that you need to be, or that's it. So it just right away didn't fit. So I was already looking for opportunities to travel and to work abroad. And once I graduated Central State, I was looking for teaching positions or positions of any kind once I graduated. And one of the amazing opportunities that came up was teaching in South Korea for the Seoul Metropolitan Office of Education. And I looked into the opportunity and I did as much reading as I could on South Korea, and I prayed and I prayed and I told my family to pray, and it all came together. And I was in South Korea for 5 years.
Yes. Now, how did that decision to go to South Korea at that time, how did that decision translate into how you're able to live and create a life of vacay today?
Definitely being adaptable. I learned that, everything wasn't as black and white as we Ohioans probably thought. We probably thought it was. I learned that you need to be adaptable. I learned that even in adaptation, you need to have boundaries. I learned myself because I didn't have those boundaries and expectations of other people that I needed to adhere to. And once I really onboarded the fact that people were going to talk about me no matter what I did, no matter whether I stayed still or moved around or was happy or sad, people were still going to talk about me. So once I really onboarded that and really, held that in my spirit, it was like a ticket, like a free ticket to anywhere in the world. Where can I go?
Right.
Where it's not for me, So it was a whole gateway towards, this entire life can be explorative, can be open-minded, can be adaptive with boundaries. And like, I'm a big proponent of living on the edge of what you're capable of. So that's...
Oh, I like that. Say that again.
Live on the edge of what you're capable of.
Yes, I like that one. Because when you think about oftentimes people, when they have dreams, especially if they're raised with certain values or thought processes, they tend to box themselves in. And even though they may have a dream to do something or a desire to do something, they often start to think about the limitations. And it just seems like, you've lived your life without limitations. Like, you moved to South Korea when it really wasn't popular. Like, this was at the beginning. Facebook really hadn't even transitioned into mainstream until like 2008. I mean, people were on MySpace prior to that.
Exactly. Black Planet.
Young people who don't know anything about MySpace. And so even YouTube, that was like the brink of YouTube. So you had to really kind of dig to get your information, and it wasn't a bunch of thought leaders or influencers,
YouTubers,
that could give you information. So it was really organic, right? But you have, since Korea, you've moved to China. And then from China, where did you go?
So I actually came back to America briefly after China. So I was in China when COVID-19 hit, and it came down to me being in my apartment by myself for almost a month until I was just like, okay, I have to make a decision about this. And I came back to America. I tried to make America work for a year. Not sure why I did that. Still unpacking that decision. But I woke up one morning and I was just like, I don't have to be here. I don't have to do this. Like, this was literally the conversation that I had with myself. And I said, where is in this same time zone, has stable infrastructure, good medical healthcare system, and the weather is beautiful. So I went and lived in Colombia.
Okay.
Medellin, Colombia for about maybe 8 months. I was in Colombia. And it was gorgeous and I loved it. And I had the best time there. It is really, really a gorgeous place with a really exceptional cost of living. And I really wish that more people would visit Colombia because it's awesome.
Yeah, it looks awesome. Yeah. The pictures were lovely. And you actually met a group of Black people there that obviously are living there as well. How was that experience?
So interestingly enough, my first 6 weeks in Medellin, I didn't meet one Black woman.
Wow.
I did not meet one Black woman until finally, out of frustration, I went into one of the other chat groups that a lot of expats are in Colombia. And I just said, who's the admin of this group? Because you're not letting me in and I can't find any of the sister girls out here. Where are the sisters? I don't understand. And then the person led me into the group, and that actually led to me starting a WhatsApp community for Black women expats who are living in Colombia. And I think that group's like maybe 115 people now.
Okay.
So that it was a struggle because I didn't know where all the women were. But it turns out that a lot of the men who are living the expats who are living in Colombia, they are retired or they own businesses or, and that's kind of the lane that I was in. So I was meeting a lot of the business owners and things like that. And kind of find out a lot of the women were remote jobs. They were working remote jobs for their company. So we just had a totally different schedule.
Right.
So that's why I wasn't meeting them.
Yeah. So you were in Colombia, and I'm glad that you mentioned business because you started your own business since Korea, since China, which is really in the space of being able to help those who are, you're helping those who are teaching ESL now, correct? Or how about this?
Mm-hmm.
How about you tell us a little bit more about the business and why you started it?
So we all know that education is the building block of society. If you have a poorly educated populace, it leads to a weak infrastructure. It leads to a poor healthcare system. It leads to lower living standards and outcomes and things like that. So I'm a huge proponent of education as a building block for society. And being in higher education, you and I both know there comes to a point where you just have to be honest with yourself. You're not really offering your students the brand of education that you would like to be offering them.
Mm-hmm.
It started to feel like to me that there was no equity in what I was offering my students. I was offering them, all the skills that they needed to pass their exams, but there were absolutely no life skills. There were absolutely nothing for them to capitalize on in order to create an opportunity for themselves outside of the university or outside of academia. And so what I really wanted to do was I wanted to be able to afford people the opportunity to create their own online courses and trainings from content that they already had. So it's kind of like a small business incubator. Yeah. So basically what I've been doing since I started the company is I've been working with, for example, I have a friend who wrote a PhD on emotional intelligence. We turned that to an online course for her. I have a friend who's in business banking for Chase. We're going to turn his course into an online course. So there were so many people that I knew who had all these skills and all these certificates, and they were just sitting collecting dust. And I was like, well, somebody would probably pay you to learn the practicum part of that versus the theory that they're getting from the book. So that's pretty much what I've been helping people do. But also when you get into that space as a consultant, people need help with business plans. People need help with social media marketing. People need help with, pitch decks and proposals and things like that. And my expertise is writing. So I've, kind of gotten into the space of offering those business services as well. So my courses are geared toward people who need to improve their writing skills for 5-paragraph essays and for research writing proposals. And the courses that I've helped people create for training or for, a qualification or credential that they have ranged anywhere from psychology to banking to life cycle management of employees. Yes. So yeah, it's interesting. I definitely feel like I'm in the right space.
Right. Yeah, at the right time. And that's great because, a lot of people are going remote. And people need to be able to pivot and do something different. And if you have a product or service, especially a service that, you really haven't even thought about, how can I get it to the masses and do something that I'm not even aware of or that I'm not in that space, and you're providing a service that gets them in that space. So that's excellent. Right. I love it. Now, when you, and I know that you probably didn't even think about the vision for what you're currently doing when you first took the first step to leave Ohio and go to South Korea, but it obviously has changed the trajectory of your life. And now you're in a place where you have your own business, which means that now, it doesn't mean that you're working less, because oftentimes when you start a business, you're working way harder than you would if you ever worked for someone else. But it does give you a sense of freedom to be able to create the life that you want. And that's really what I consider a life of vacay. How has this whole entire journey that you've created from the infancy, leaving Ohio, going to South Korea, going to China, going to Colombia, and now being in Ghana, how has this ultimately changed your life?
I think really it's the limitations are in your mind. That's what the battle that you're fighting, like we kind of make it as humans, like we're constantly warring with some external force. It's not, it's you. It's whatever inhibitions and limitations are in your mind. They're coming from you in your mind. You thought them up. You're adhering to them. You're continuing to make these agreements that allow for this cycle to begin. Once I realized that, it was like the world truly is your oyster. I truly believe that God made this entire world for me to see and enjoy. And that's kind of the way that I have been creating this reality as I go. Whatever opportunity I get, I work as hard as I can at it, on it, and I reap the benefits of that and God's blessings and grace. I think that when it comes to living a life of vacay, you have to be very specific with yourself and with the goals and objectives that you have for yourself and for your life. It's not enough to say that I want to be my own boss. That's not even the beginning of it. Enough to say I want to help people. That's not even the beginning of it. You have to be very specific. Like I said, when I decided to move to Colombia, I didn't just say, I don't have to be here anymore, and I just left America. No, I said, what's in this time zone? What has stable infrastructure? What has a stable medical system? What, whether agreeable, like I had boundaries, I had things that I was looking. That is what really turns your life into that vacation. When you're looking at your vacation, it's, okay, how far is the beach? And do they clean the beach every day? And are the towels at the hotel clean? Like, that you're looking for in your experience, in a vacation experience. I've sought those things in life.
Yes. And that's important. And you said a whole mouthful, because I think a lot of times people don't realize their dreams because they aren't very clear, or they're constantly changing it. Like, I want to step out and I want to do something different, but then no, I don't know what that is. And then they start second guessing themselves, or they start off with one plan and they're constantly changing it to the second plan, and they have A, B, and C options versus just being very finite about, this is what I want.
So I have objectives. I never have a plan.
And that's something too, because, and I think for a lot of people, they think about what they want, right? And then they put it out there. And I talk about manifestation all the time. I've written a whole journal on it, but it's really about being very clear about your intentions, and then really doing the necessary work to create that intention. But you also have to be able and be willing to let it go, because your plan, if you create the whole entire plan, it's probably not even going to work that way anyway.
It's going to work how it's supposed to work.
Right.
It's going to work how it's supposed to work. There is no, and that's another thing that I've learned that I had while living in America. We are severe control freaks. Severe. I had no idea how much of an impact my need to control my reality was until I left America.
Yes.
The things that you're willing to go through in order to stay in control, the cutting off the nose to spite your face because you need to be in control and it needs to happen the way that you want it to happen. And that's not an experience. You plan that.
Right. Yeah. And that oftentimes happens. And the control aspect of it is funny because you're not even supposed to think about the how, right? You're supposed to come up with the thought that I want to do something. You know exactly what it is that you want to do. You let it go. And literally, like, the how starts working out for you. Then the things that you need start appearing. And then you just have to have the understanding that, okay, that's what I asked for. Let me go with it. I even think about how I even got to Korea. I literally said, I was sitting on my couch, I was living in Charlotte, sat up and I was like, I want to see the world. And then I went to sleep. I woke up. I had a whole email from a recruiter asking me if I would be interested in this position. I looked at it and I wasn't even thinking I had asked to see the world, because it was like not even a thought. I just put it out there and I kind of went to sleep. I literally, it wasn't even 2 hours later, I woke up to this email saying they had seen my resume, because I was unemployed at the time. I was looking for jobs. And so they saw my resume somewhere on the job board. And they presented this whole package of South Korea, come teach in South Korea. And I was like, who the hell does this? And I thought it was interesting. I looked at all the emails and I looked at the website, and then I deleted it because I was like, what?
And I think one of the people who encouraged you to put your resume on that job.
Yes. I mean, it was funny because literally, and we have a mutual friend.
And I told you how easy it was. I was like, no, Chai, it's really easy. No, this is what they're going to give you. And this is what's happening. Like, this is what's happening. You was like, girl. And I was like, no, Chai,
Yeah. And then our mutual friend calls me and goes, Chai, sit down, I'm about to go to Japan. I'm like, the hell? So I listen. I'm like, who does this?
But I am wise enough to know, like, when synchronicity happens, and I said, hold up, obviously need to be in South Korea because I deleted this whole thing and it came back to me. Because, when you really want something, you desire it, and you don't have all those attachments to it, but you literally let it go. And I went to sleep and let it go. And it came right back to me. Then other things started to appear that I was aware of, that I was like, hold up, I'm in my own way. So all I have to do is remove all of the thoughts of what it should look like. Like you said, kind of see the world. Like I wasn't very specific. I just said I wanted to see the world. I didn't say how it was going to come, where I wanted to go, none of that. And had I been more finite in that, it probably would have showed up exactly like I had designed it. However, it came to me like the world. In the world, let's start with Korea. And since then, I've been to 25 countries and done some amazing things and lived in 2. But you have to like really not be attached to what that looks like for you.
You have to be open. You have to have your boundaries, and those come and they change. And, that's a whole process. You have to have boundaries, but it happens. It comes together. You will be amazed when you allow the universe to work on your behalf. When you just pray and believe and do your best, you'd be surprised at the opportunities that you can create for yourself.
Yes. And so now you're living in Ghana. What's that like?
Ghana is different. Ghana is very different so normally all the other countries that I've lived in 4 other countries. I normally move to top tier cities. Like I was living in Seoul in South Korea. When I lived in Oman, I was, you're close to the capital, or you're close to a capital city normally when I move. And I'm living in Accra, but it definitely has a feel of a capital city. There are definitely lots of people all over all the time, but the beach is right here. So this is a game changer. I've never moved to a major city that was on a coast where it was actually swimmable. So that's been dope. The food. So as you know, Asian food. I pretty much grew up in Asia in my adult years. So I'm used to the spice and the garlic and the chilies and things like that. So the food here to me is really, really good. And they do a lot of stews and stuff like South Korea. So the food is really good. The nightlife is really good. Yeah, the only complaint that I have, and it's not really a complaint because I've gotten over it. So scam is life here. To scam is to breathe here. And that's just what it is. And you really just can't take that personally. You just kind of have to accept it and move on. That's pretty much the only thing that I found here, like hard. Well, that and white egg yolk. These have been the 2 hardest for me to get over.
Tell us more.
So the first day I got here, I went to the grocery store and I bought eggs. And I woke up the next morning and I cracked the egg and I put it in the cup. And I looked in the cup and it was something white floating in the cup. So I'm like, oh my gosh, was it a bad egg? Or, did I drop something else in the, there wasn't, clearly the egg has a white yolk. The eggs here, I don't know if it's like a foreign versus local thing, but the foreign eggs here have white yolk. Yeah, and it's weird.
Never.
It's
Bless
weird.
my heart. I've never even heard of that. That's interesting. White. Yolks.
It's insane. Yeah, it's insane.
And nobody's told you why that is?
No. When I go to the grocery store, it's not like I can look inside the egg.
So do they taste different?
Yes, to me they do. It might be psychological. It could be totally psychological, but to me they do.
Wow, I don't know what I would do with that. Because it was experience for me to be in Korea and the eggs aren't even refrigerated. So I was like, oh, about that. It took me a minute to even want to buy those eggs because I was like, well, what is this? But then I realized, someone told me, just, a little fact. Someone posted, since I live in Mexico, they also don't refrigerate the eggs. And so someone posted that they don't refrigerate them because they don't have to put a chemical on them in America, they put a chemical on the egg so that for salmonella, so that you won't get it. In other foreign countries, they're processed in a way that they don't have to do that. Therefore, you can leave them out. And I was like, what? All this time I didn't know. So yeah, that's white yolks. I would be so freaked out. Be like, what in all the world is going on? Yeah, I would have threw the whole thing away and just been like, not doing this.
I was like 3 exams before I realized.
Yeah, yeah. I would have been a whole partner. This is not working out for me.
No, it was. But so far, those are only a couple of things that I've found that aren't tolerable to me, the white eggs and scamming.
Now, did fear ever come into play when thinking about living abroad, or even people who think about Colombia, like think about, safety? How did you handle either fear or ever feeling safe in a place?
So it's funny that you mentioned that, because since coming here to Ghana, I've also realized that I'm a paranoid American as well. And that's for a couple of different reasons. Americans are kind of targeted when we travel for, being rich and, kidnapping and stuff like that. So I, as a solo female traveler, like to over 40 countries, I've just kind of always been street smart coming from Cleveland. There are just certain situations and areas that you don't put yourself in with certain people. And that's like kind of like a sixth sense that I've had since I was younger. So I've carried that with me, through everywhere that I've been. And I'm not saying that, questionable things happen absolutely everywhere. Like I can bring up a story right now from some heinous thing that truly happened in Cleveland today. I think that people's perception of how safe they are stems from the need to control things. So those two things go on hand in hand, like needing to know exactly where things are before I leave, and, sending the car plate to other people. That's paranoia. And I got here to Ghana and people are like, what are you doing this for? Like, Ghana's safe. Like, we don't have school shootings and mass stabbings and, the most that they have over here is like the crazy guy, who walks through traffic. But I mean, he's not going to hurt anybody. So I realized that coming from America, I actually thought I was a lot more unsafe being abroad, because I thought I was going to be targeted for being an American. But the only thing they really target you for being an American is having money. And then they quickly learned that's not true for all Americans. So, pump your brakes on that. Mm-hmm. But when I got here to Ghana, it was like, I know that, I'm in danger. I don't know why. I just felt like, not even that I didn't feel like I was in danger in other countries. I just went and did the things that I know I could do at the time that I knew I could do them. You stay out of trouble, right. That kind of inside time, the street lights are on kind of thing. If you're not with somebody, like that's just, protecting yourself. But here is a totally different thing. Like somebody will scam you way faster than and then help you out of the scam.
What? Oh my goodness.
They would stand next to you and they would sell it to everybody else for, let's say, 50 CDs. But you're a foreigner and they hear your accent, so they're going to sell it to you for 70 CDs. Now tell that same person that you don't have money to get home now because you paid them 70 CDs. They're going to help you get home.
Wow. So our people.
Really is like a community, like based society here. Like people just knock on your door. Hey, you got some food? People just stop over, like knocking and stopping over. So it's totally different. And this is no safety issue to them whatsoever. And for me, I'm like, we actually have songs that talk about calling before you come over. So just realizing where all of those things stem from, and the fact that you can't avoid them like you're not going to be avoiding them anywhere that you go. Just, keep your street smarts about you. Don't be where you know you shouldn't be. Times you shouldn't be there. But that means different things to different people. Yes. And as a Black woman, I was always hyper aware. Like the whole thing that we do, let me know when you get home. Like that's control. Like that's the safety thing, because we're used to each other not making it home. In America, it's bad. Like I never realized how many of the things that our cultural norms are based on paranoia.
Yeah.
And then we go other places and we're like, yeah, no, for real. Like I'm dealing with it. Like I'm dealing with it. I went to a party here and this guy got really, really, really close to my face. And I was like, bruh. He didn't have an intention, but he didn't have an ill intention in his body. He was just trying to greet me. He was just trying to say hello. He saw that I was sitting there on my phone and we were at a party and he just came over to say hello.
Wow.
But here my American so-called, it's a thing. It's a thing. It's a process. You're constantly having to, and I remember telling somebody this, like, as a Black woman, I am constantly calculating and recalculating my safety. I remember saying that. And I had actually no qualms about what I was saying. Now, I see it a little differently.
Yeah, I remember moving to Korea and, you know, they have no understanding of personal space. So I had to really get used to that because they would be all up on you, like straight up with their garlic smelling breath. I'm like, yo, oh, I know you like that. Like, but afterwards, I remember going back to the US and it was the things that people would do, I wouldn't even trip off of, to the point that I had went to the mall one time and a person I knew had came up on me and they were like, and I saw like something on the side of me, but I kind of just shifted and moved over a little so that they could have space, but I wasn't tripping. And then they moved closer and I was like, yo, what's up? Like, we in America, this ain't Korea no more. Why is this person moving? And it happened to be somebody I knew and they were like, dang, you wasn't even gonna do anything when I got that close to you. And I was like, I'm different. Oh yeah, I get it. I totally get it. So yeah,
the people, So in America, if somebody was to get that close to you, your spidey sense will start tingling, so to speak. But it's just not the same other places. Like in Korea, the police didn't even carry guns. Right. That's how safe we were.
I told everybody that. That's like, they didn't even have no guns in Korea.
They didn't even have any guns. And the violent crimes that happen, if you get into a fight with somebody, whoever gets hurt the worst is the person who needs to pay. So it was very simple because nobody wants to pay the money. They use having to pay money as a deterrent for crime. And I just thought that was really, really ingenious to them. Let people work it out for themselves instead of bringing every nook and cranny issue to the justice system.
Yeah, I mean, America is we could go on forever talking about that. It's totally different when you step out of the whole American system and then you start living abroad. And people who used to call me and be like, aren't you scared? Like, why do you want to live abroad? America's the best place. And I'm like, what? Have you been somewhere? Like, talk to me when you've gone and you've experienced, like, you're selling me propaganda.
Yeah. Anything. Yeah, I understand people who don't want to get out. It's not for everybody. It's really not. It's not for everybody. And I'm not one of those people who's like, no, you need to come, you need to travel, you need to know. If you want to stay in that box, please stay in there, because when you come out, you make the rest of us look silly. Going to countries without visas and vaccinations and not knowing what the local laws are and stuff like that. Like, that's embarrassing to people who travel a lot. Right. Not embarrassing to me personally, but like when local people tell you the stories of like, yeah, they came here, like Ghana, everybody knows that you need a yellow fever vaccine to come to Ghana. It's the first thing on the website. You literally can't Google coming here without having that piece of information. People just still show up. Wow. And they in their winter boots in tropical countries. Yeah, the unprepared. That could be a whole nother podcast on how people are so unprepared to travel. And yeah, because even people moving here to Mexico, a lot of times this is their first place that they're moving, or the first place they've ever even gone. This is their first stamp. So they come here and they move. And I'm like, did you do any kind of research? Did you ask any kind of questions? Any research. And that's what I was saying before in our conversation. You have to be specific. You can't just, you might not need like a full plan, but you need to, like, you're literally going to somebody else's country. Like, it's a whole different ballgame, especially if America doesn't have a huge influence there. But even if they do, the culture will still be stronger than the American influence. It's a whole, I'm really proud of people who are still stepping outside the box and getting stamps. And I wish that people would use Google a little bit more. Just, I don't know. Maybe if we could host some kind of, how to search before you go on a trip. I don't know.
Yes. No, definitely. There's so many mistakes that are being made that really shouldn't be made now. Because again, like I said, we are pioneers in this whole movement where we were living outside of our comfort zones way before it was even popular. Yes, in the Renaissance era, you had poets and artists and stuff that moved abroad, but not in this era has it been like so popular, but we did it even before it was popular. And I'm just like, we did it before there was all the social media where you could ask a whole bunch of questions. And so I'm often baffled by all of these people who are you're still making rookie decisions. And you have a plethora of information. Like, it's so many blogs, there's so many articles there. I mean, it's just mad information for people not to be doing the things that they're doing. I could have this conversation forever. I love talking to you. I'm so glad that you're doing what you love to do and living a life of vacay, even now, many years after you began. So thank you for sharing and joining me today. How can my listeners get in contact with you or follow you?
You can follow me on Instagram at 3L Chapter.
Okay, yeah. I lost you for a second. So how can we follow you?
You can follow us on Instagram, 3 LLC Consulting, or Facebook, 3LLCconsulting.com, or you can write me an email, LaTasha Simms at 3LLCconsulting.com.
It has been a pleasure to have you here, and thank you for joining me today. I'm your host, Child Jones. If you like this show, please subscribe, share, and donate to help keep it going. Until next time, remember you have one life. Take time and create your own freedom. It's been real. Until next time.
You have been listening to Life's a Vacay podcast. Thank you for tuning in today. Every day you have a choice, so choose yourself and never allow your circumstances to dictate the life you live. Whatever you don't like, you can change. Remember, nothing happens overnight. But know that when you set goals and take inspired action, whatever you desire can come in perfect timing. Never give up on creating the life you deserve. Don't anticipate your next vacation when you could be living a whole life on vacation. Until next time, I'm your host, Cha Jones. Please remember to like and share this podcast so that others can be inspired. Peace.